Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to see you here. My name is Abby Shelton, like George mentioned, and I work for the By the People program, which is the library's virtual volunteer program. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program, the impact that our volunteers make for our collections, and then also how you can get connected yourself. And that's what I just said. So what is the By the People program? So we invite anyone with an internet connection and a device to transcribe historical documents from the Library of Congress collections. And it's kind of a choose your own adventure program. So you get to choose how much you work on, what interests you. Some of our volunteers will come and do a couple pages, decide it's not for them, and move on. Some people will do it regularly. It's totally up to you. And you get to contribute anytime from anywhere because it's all online. Our website is crowd.loc.gov. And you get to follow your interests. Whatever materials on our website interest you, you can decide to work on those. So what does it actually look like? Here you're seeing a screenshot of our transcription interface. So you see the original, this is actually a manuscript poem written by Walt Whitman when he was developing his ideas for this poem. So a volunteer comes to this page, they look at the text on the left, and they transcribe what they see on the right. Once someone has transcribed this page, another volunteer will come through and review the transcription. So it's a two-step process. At least one person transcribes and a second volunteer reviews, which is a nice kind of safety net, which allows you to kind of try it out and know that someone else will be coming along behind you to take a look. So once the transcriptions for a particular collection are finished, we take those transcriptions and we return them to the library's main website, which is loc.gov, where they can be keyword searched, they can be downloaded, either as individual pages or as full sets. So what you're seeing here on the screen is probably one of our coolest documents that volunteers transcribed. This is Rosa Parks' pancake recipe, which she has written on the back of a bank envelope. So any of you that remember getting cash in a bank envelope, I still remember doing that. And her secret ingredient, well, maybe not so secret ingredient in here, is a 1/3 cup peanut butter. So try it out, go to our website, look up this recipe, make it yourself. Apparently it's delicious. I've not actually made the recipe, but apparently these pancakes are delicious. So you can see how, now you can go to the website and you can search for peanut butter and you get to this recipe where you wouldn't have before. So you can kind of get a sense. I mean, this is a fun example, but imagine what this opens up in terms of searching for names or searching for places or events or topics or that kind of thing. So what kind of things do our volunteers transcribe? So we have at any given time about 10 to 12 collections that our volunteers are working on. And we like to add material maybe once a month, once every other month. And we try to cover a wide range of things, topics, time period, people, mostly related to American history, but sometimes not. So for instance, right now you could transcribe the papers of poet Walt Whitman, President Theodore Roosevelt. You could transcribe some sheet music, if you're into music, the lyrics and music of early musical theater. So think like early 20th century Broadway shows. Silent film cue sheets. These are really cool. In the silent film era, there were pieces of music that indicated to the organist what pieces of music they should play at what times. So you can transcribe those, the papers of Clara Barton, and more. And we're excited to launch in about another week or two a bunch of transcription projects related to the American Revolution. So in November, Ken Burns is releasing a documentary on the American Revolution, and we are an engagement partner for that documentary. So we'll be launching the letters and diaries of women in the early republic to transcribe, early sheet music, books and pamphlets, and also cookbooks. So look for that stuff if you're interested in that kind of history. And what kind of things do these transcriptions enable, or what impact do people make? So the first impact is collection enhancement. So when we have transcriptions available, people can keyword search in our massive catalog and get to the pages that they're really interested in. They make these pages easier to read. The handwriting, as you saw in some of the previous examples, is not always easy to read. It helps people read these, and also opens them up to accessibility technology. So for people using screen readers, that kind of thing. It also turns these historical documents into data, so they can be used for computational research, data analysis, that kind of thing. So those are the impacts that these transcriptions have for the collections. But equally important to us is the impact that transcription has on our volunteers. And we did a survey a couple years ago of our volunteers to find out what kinds of things do you experience when you're transcribing? What kind of things have you gained? And people told us that they gained new skills, whether that was in close reading, primary source analysis, a new knowledge of history, a new interest in history. People read these letters and diaries and kind of get to know historical figures, get attached to them, get to know their inner lives. So it's a lot of fun, in addition to being impactful. So since our program launched in 2018, our volunteers have transcribed over 1 million pages. Over 49,000 people have signed up to join us in our volunteer community. We've published about 662,000 of those transcriptions back on the library's main website. We've made 29 full-text data sets available of those transcriptions. That sounds fancy. It's just a spreadsheet of all of the transcriptions in one particular collection that you can download and access in one place. So I want to talk a little bit about that impact. What do these transcriptions do for the collections? So we took a look at our web analytics a couple years ago because we wanted to know, when you add transcriptions to a collection, does it increase discovery like we think it does or not? And by and large, what we found was that for transcriptions, or for collections that have transcriptions, web traffic went up by about 30 to 40%. And we were able to look at this one particular collection, the Clara Barton Papers, and we compared the portion of the collection without transcriptions to the portion of the collection with transcriptions. And we found that the portion with transcriptions received double the web traffic. So it really is making a real-world impact to help people find materials on our website. And again, here's some of the things our volunteers said that they gained from the activity of transcribing: a sense of purpose, a new knowledge of history, a new skill or ability, a greater sense of well-being, especially during the pandemic when people were looking for things to do at home. This was a great way to do something productive and an enjoyable and relaxing new hobby. So how can you connect? There are 3 ways that I want to talk about today. So I've mentioned transcription. You can transcribe as an individual. Again, anyone is welcome to go to our website, crowd.lsu.gov, and transcribe. But we also have a lot of people that transcribe in community. So you may have a book club, or work at a public library, or belong to a historical society or some other organization. Be a teacher whose students need service learning hours. So a great way to do that is to host what we call a transcribe-a-thon, where people gather together in one place and then transcribe all together. And we provide some resources on our website to help you host one of those events, including a guide with some tips and suggestions about how you might host one of these, a draft PowerPoint presentation that you can just pull and use in your own context, and then a quick tips handout that you could print out and give to your attendees. On the screen, you see just a couple of examples from the educational context. So a class here, a high school class transcribing the papers of Mary Church Terrell. We have often participated in an event called Douglas Day, which happens on February 14th, which is the chosen birthday of Frederick Douglass. And there's an organization based at Penn State that encourages people to transcribe collections related to Black history. We've often been the service project for that. We're not the service project this year, but we may be again in the future. That's a great opportunity. And then the other thing here is from this really neat club at Youngstown State University. There was a student there that started a transcribing club, and the students still meet 4 years later every week. They transcribe together. They've transcribed over 20,000 pages, and they're doing it all for their service learning requirement for their college. So that's been a great opportunity for them. I just mentioned service learning. So there are a lot of students or other folks that need volunteer hour requirements, and sometimes they're able to use our program to fulfill that. So I mentioned that anyone can contribute. You don't need to sign up for a user account, but if you do sign up for a user account, you unlock a few features, including a profile page, which you can see a screenshot here, where you can download a letter that lists out everything you've worked on, how many pages you've transcribed. It's on official Library of Congress letterhead, and that will sometimes work for students to submit for volunteer service hours. And then finally, I encourage you to check out our transcriptions to use for your own research. So this is that example, peanut butter pancakes. You get that Rosa Parks recipe right there. Again, you can just view the transcriptions. You can download them. You can download them as full text data sets, which I mentioned, which again, fancy word for spreadsheet of all the transcriptions of one collection. And we've made so far 29 of those available. Let me just check my time. Okay, I think I'm good. And I wanted to end with this quote. This was from a survey we did a couple years ago where we asked volunteers why they transcribe, what they find meaningful. And this volunteer told us, "Most meaningful is the feeling that I am contributing to something much bigger than myself. It makes By the People seem more real to me. It connects me to other Americans looking for shared meaning in our history, and it shows to me that this country is a work in progress, which is a good thing." So with that, I encourage you to try it out. There's our website, crowd.loc.gov. We send out a newsletter about every 2 weeks, and that's how we keep people informed about what's new, what's coming. So feel free to transcribe or subscribe to our newsletter. Again, it's every 2 weeks. We try not to spam your inbox. We also have an email address there that you can get in contact with us. There are people on the other end of that email. It's me and 2 other colleagues, so we do read those and we do respond. Don't worry, it's not going into a void or an abyss or something. It's real people responding to your questions. And I think I'll leave it at that and open it up for any questions anybody might have. Oh, and there's a mic here that we're going to pass around for questions. Yeah.
So I saw that one of the collections currently being transcribed is 16th century Spanish legal documents. Yeah. So 2 questions. Do you have other specific language needs or things like factur or whatever? And do you also translate things that are not in English?
Yeah, those are great questions. So we do have other languages represented on the site. Those other languages are mostly kind of spread through large collections. But we have, so if you go to our campaigns page, which is a list of everything that you can transcribe, we have some topics, and we have language topics. So you can click on French or German and see things in French and German. In terms of German in particular, because you mentioned Fraktur, we don't have anything in Fraktur, but we are transcribing the papers of Hannah Arendt. And much of her collection is in German and in handwritten German, so we need a lot of German help. And then translating, no. We ask volunteers to transcribe what they see in the original language. Translation can be a specialized skill, and so that's something that would be a different set of skills than what we're asking volunteers to do. But that's a great question. We don't, so our program doesn't work with Braille, but I believe the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled does have a Braille transcription program. Yeah, thank you so much.
For situations where there are special characters, is there a standardized set of instructions for how to enter those types of things, like the degree marker on the Rosa Parks recipe or diacritics or something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question about special characters. So we do have a pretty extensive transcription kind of guideline that goes over all of those things. In general, we ask people to transcribe special characters as best they can. We're most concerned with the text, I think, and the accuracy and completeness of the text. So if there's a special character that's really difficult to transcribe, it's fine if you leave it off. But our guide goes through kind of every situation you could think of. But yeah, great question. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for your presentation. Yeah. I wanted to ask, you mentioned that you'll have someone transcribe and then review afterwards. Mm-hmm. If you're the original transcriber, do you ever get feedback on how to do it better? Do you find that your transcribers improve over time?
Yeah, so You don't get, there isn't a way for volunteers to give feedback to each other. We, as community managers, are happy to give feedback to volunteers when they ask. We get a lot of questions with people sending us a link to a page, like, did I do this right? That kind of thing. And absolutely, people get better over time. We actually sometimes suggest that if you're interested in getting started, a place to start is review, because then you're not having to transcribe a page totally out of nothing. You're actually seeing what someone else has transcribed and comparing it and kind of getting a sense for how that works. So, yeah, great question. Thank you.
Hi, Abby. I'm Claude.
Hi, Claude.
I've been transcribing for 5.5 years.
Claude is one of our longtime volunteers.
The Herencia project. And I just wanted to say, if you're transcribing, look at what has been done before, because that gives you a guide to what somebody has done and figured out.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in the Spanish documents, there's a lot of weird money signs, but if you check and see what somebody else figured out what it means, it's always helpful also.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, to look at what other volunteers have done. And I often, too, whenever I get the chance to take a little time to transcribe, which isn't often, is that I will try to transcribe sequentially, because then you can see like a word that you didn't get on the one page, then you go 2 pages down and you're like, oh, that's that word, and then you can go back. So, yeah, great tips. Thanks, Claude. It's good to see you.
Hi.
Hi.
I actually volunteered a few months ago to transcribe for the National Archives.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And partly this is like, what's the relationship between the Library of Congress and the National Archives? But are you sure you're not duplicating efforts? Because it would be silly if the document is in 2 places to have it transcribed twice.
Yeah, so we're working solely with unique Library of Congress collections, and most of our stuff is truly unique. It's handwritten letters, diaries that are only found in the Library of Congress. I know at the National Archives, their program works a little bit differently, but again, they're working with their collections and we're working with ours. So, but we love them over there. They're a great program. Yeah.
Thank you. Just kind of a specific question, but if you really can't make out a word, or is it best guess a word? You don't want to leave a blank, or if you can't make out a sentence? I mean, it's kind of specific to the working. But.
Yeah. So if you can't make out a word, it's best not to guess. We suggest that you put a question mark in brackets for every word that you can't get to. So I said it was a 2-step process, but often it can be a multi-step process. There's a way to save so if you come to a page and you think, this is boring, this is hard, I can't figure it out, you can save it and it will go in progress. So we have pages that have no transcription that need someone to start them. We have pages that are in progress, which means a volunteer has started, they've stopped for whatever reason, and left it in progress, and then we have pages that need review. So you can always stop on a page and move on if it's too hard or too difficult. So, yep, you get to pick. Whatever you want to work on, you can work on. Yeah.
She had a question.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I had a question about how you're prioritizing the collections that you're putting forward to volunteers. Are you like waiting for a critical mass of papers in a collection? Or are you just kind of just doing it based on theme? Like, how is it decided what is actually getting presented?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are downstream from digitization at the library. So our program doesn't make decisions about what collections get digitized, et cetera. And so we work with collections that are already digitized. So we kind of have a limited pool of things. But we work with our collection specialists in the various departments. So in the manuscript division or the rare book division. And sometimes they bring collections to us. So, here's a collection of, we did a bunch of collections related to women's suffrage around the anniversary of the 19th Amendment. Was that 2020, I think? And so that was kind of thematic. So sometimes we'll do thematic. Sometimes it's just a curator bringing us something. We think this would be interesting. We also do our own collection research. The library's website is immense. I mean, there's stuff on the website tucked in all, like you can imagine, it's like a physical building, right, where you have stuff tucked in nooks and crannies. The website is the same way. No staff member knows everything that's on the website. There's so much. So we will regularly comb through the website to try to find materials that we think would be interesting to people. So it's kind of a little bit of everything, but yeah.
Are there any plans to use AI to relate handwriting to the transcriptions, especially for some prolific writers such as Roosevelt or Jefferson or something like that, to enable some automation of the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've taken initial steps in that direction. We do have an OCR, this button, available on the website. So OCR, for those who aren't familiar, is optical character recognition. It's a text recognition software that's most useful just for printed materials. Handwriting recognition is still pretty poor. We actually, a new issue we've encountered recently is people trying to use AI on their own on our images and fill those in as transcriptions. And I will say in general, it's done with good intention, but in general, those outputs are bad, to say the least, because AI doesn't indicate uncertainty. And so when it encounters a word that it doesn't know, it makes something up. So it can do well, maybe on a very cleanly written, neatly written thing, a good scan. A lot of our scans, too, were done 10 years ago, and so humans can read them fine, but computers can't. And so you'll be reading something that AI did, and you're like, okay, whoa, like, where did that come from? But that being said, we're aware that other institutions are working on handwritten text recognition, and so we're in touch with people about it, and the library has certainly started to engage in that conversation, but we're not there quite yet. We still need humans.
Sorry, me again. I find the OCR hilarious because it's adding to Latin English word endings, and it's very frustrating. They're adding accents where they're not supposed to be because they think you're doing another kind of text. But OCR is a lot of fun. It's sometimes really hilarious what solutions they find.
Can a wannabe transcription group suggest a topic that they would like to tackle?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're always open to hearing what people are interested in. And we can sometimes bring that to curators and say, like, hey, we've heard a lot of people are interested in doing this collection. It doesn't mean that we'll be able to, especially if it's something that's not digitized. And I will say that it can take a long time for a collection to get digitized at the library. But we love hearing feedback because that's always a great persuasive tool for us to take to our curators and say, oh, like, I think we should digitize this collection. So if you have an idea, feel free to email us. Yeah. Okay, we've got 5 minutes. So any other?
Do you have any era-specific guides to transcription? Because, like, sometimes, like, particular periods of time might have, like, a common abbreviation that they use for that period that we don't have now and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So every campaign, so our campaigns, that's just our word for collections. Every campaign has a landing page, and on that landing page, there are a lot of resources specific to that campaign. So there may be exactly what you're talking about, a guide to some of the common abbreviations that you might see in this particular collection. There's historical context about what you might find. So it's really campaign specific. But in terms of abbreviations, we actually ask you that not to expand the abbreviation in general. But yeah, usually every single campaign will have associated resources to help you with that kind of stuff. So.